equivalent energy, and from the oil sands and from some of these tremendous rigs that we put out, like the one in Mexico that was so cute. Cost $350 million to build that damn thing. That's a lot of energy to build that. Costs energy to build the thing. Then it costs energy to drill a couple miles beneath the ocean surface. Then another couple miles. That's energy. You got people living on there. You got to supply them. That's energy. So the estimates now are the harder to find oil, and we will constantly be moving resource to reserve. So there's always going to be the same reserve number. It's just going to cost a hell of a lot of money, take a long time, and we're going to get less energy return on energy invested. Case in point, Brazil. Brazil has just discovered a huge oil field, or maybe even bigger than the one in Alaska, deep ocean drilling in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Maybe you've heard about it. They say there's 10 to 15 billion barrels there. What's the problem? It'll take 15 years before they see the first barrel and cost over $200 billion just to develop it before they see the first barrel. That means the amortization of this project is like 20, 30 years before they even make a profit. And this is for people who say, okay, we got to drill in Alaska, we got to drill here to get relief at the pump. Did you hear that expression in the American political discourse? Relief at the pump. Moron. They're not going to drill there unless oil's expensive. If oil goes below $70 a barrel, it's not worth drilling in these places. It's got to be $100, $150 a barrel to make it worthwhile to drill in these places. Sorry, folks, facts. Coal. Aha, coal, the solution. Clean coal. I believe you can do clean coal. So what? The problem is, worldwide reserves have been greatly exaggerated. We have been told that America has 250 to 300 years of coal reserves at present rates of consumption. So they've just done a revisit to these figures, and they say, no, America has 120 years of reserves. That means maybe China at present rates of consumption has 50 to 60, because they have less oil, coal and mine twice as much. But what is most important? The energy content of the coal currently being mined is in decline. They start with anthracite. They move to the bituminous. Is that how you pronounce that? You know how you pronounce it?
Bituminous.
Bituminous. And then to subbituminous. And in many areas of the world, to lignite. Well, the energy content as you move down the scale is much lower. So what have I discovered in research for this talk? It's very interesting, thank you. America has already passed peak coal. The energy content of the coal being mined in America has been in decline since 2000. They're mining more tonnage. They're mining more tonnage, less energy content. Liquefaction. To liquefy coal in order to solve the transportation. We got plenty of coal, let's liquefy it, like the Nazis did during World War II, they liquefied coal, and like South Africa did under apartheid, they liquefied coal. We have all the technology, it's 30, 40, 50 years old, 60 years old, it's nothing new. So you go and you investigate, okay, what's the energy content? If they liquefy all the coal being used by America for electrical production today, how many barrels of coal per day would you get? 3 million. That's not a solution. That's pie in the sky. And this is why I think the proportion of investments in alternative energy will be much larger than currently projected. And here we have a tremendous opportunities for Israeli startups, as well as high-tech legacy companies, such as our hosts today. We're in for very expensive energy, folks. The free ride is over, and if you think $150 is expensive, believe me, it's cheap per barrel of oil. and this decade is the turning point. It is going to happen sooner than we expect. We don't feel it yet because of the worldwide recession. We're in a recession, and it's still between $70 and $80 a barrel. By 2015, the number of Asian middle-class consumers, apropos our Tom's talk, will equal the number in Europe and North America, just in Asia.
When? Excuse me?
5 years from now. By 2021, on present trends, and so it could happen earlier, it will probably happen later, 2025, there could be more than 2 billion Asians in middle-class households. By 2025, China will have over 600 million middle-class consumers. Today they have 150 million middle-class consumers. And you know what middle-class people consume, don't you? According to the McKinsey Global Institute, India's middle class will be 20 times what it is today in another 20 years, by 2030. 20 times. Somewhere around 500 million people. Consuming just like us. Not like Americans or Germans, like us. By 2020, the global middle class will be consist of 52% of the global population will be middle class. Up from 30% today. That's in another 10 years. Unbelievable what's happening. This is something that makes the Industrial Revolution, the Scientific Revolution, together as if it were nothing. Nothing in the history of the human race has happened so quickly. The energy needs are tremendous, and there is no way the present paradigm can possibly satisfy them. 2005, China added as much electricity generation as the entire country of Great Britain. 1 year. 2006, they added more than France's total production. Okay? And still, hundreds of millions of Chinese lack electricity. 400 million in India don't have any electricity. The demand for electricity in India will grow 5-fold over the next 20, 25 years. Quintuple. Coal ain't going to handle that. Nuclear ain't going to handle that. Drill baby drill ain't going to handle that. And how about the romance of the car, the automobile? There's an old joke in America. Why do men love women who wear leather? Because it smells like a new car. And that's universal. It has nothing to do with language. A car. So the United States right now has 750 cars for every 1,000 people. I thought it was more, actually. I thought America had more cars than humans. Well, people and humans are different, so maybe they do have more cars. China has only 8 cars per 1,000 people, and they're already the world's largest car market. Hello. By 2020, there's going to be 200 million cars in China. The market is growing 20% a year. Can't sell in America, so what? You go to China. Go to India. India and the rest of Asia are beginning to follow suit. Some projections have India passing China in car ownership by mid-century. That has to do with China's impending demographic winter. China's in for real big sores demographically. And Indonesia is a case in point. I don't know whether you know it or not. Indonesia is one of the founding members of OPEC. And a couple of years ago, they had to leave OPEC. You know why? They are now net oil importers. 5 years ago, they were exporting a million barrels a day. Now they're importing oil. And why? They have a growing middle class, growing domestic consumption, and they also have crappy management. That didn't help. But even with good management, you put it off a couple of years. Mexico's on the same course. Mexico will probably become a net oil importer by 2020. Their Cantrell field has plummeted 30–40% in production in the last 2 or 3 years. Okay, so what I think Israel's potential markets? What we could swing with, what we could do? Well, we're not going to compete with building nuclear reactors. We might blow up a field. That's a different story. They come to talk about that. Retrofitting and cogeneration. I call it small scale. Home improvements. I swear, if somebody came to my apartment and said, I can take your central air conditioning and use the heat that it's giving off to produce some electricity, I would say, go ahead and do it. Or, IT the vents so that, like when I'm sleeping, I'm not cooling my closet. Big. Who are the consumers? The entire home improvement and hardware industries. Let's use America, for example. Home Depot, Lowe's, Sears, sectors of Walmart. Walmart as a company is dedicated to making its stores energy self-sufficient. Getting their stores off the grid. You can criticize them for a lot of things. It's up to them. Hundreds of small and medium-sized chains, and the real estate industry. Folks, within 10 years, you will not be able to sell or rent a house or building that is not super green. And by super green, I mean all but self-sufficient in energy. Not because I love trees.
In the United States.
Pardon?
In the United States, where?
I said in another 10 years, anywhere in the developed world, energy costs are through the roof. And they're just going to go up. You know why? The IMF is now under pressure not to subsidize development of fossil fuels. I don't know whether you know it or not. Fossil fuels are subsidized worldwide to the tune of $600 billion a year. That's like 10 times the amount of subsidies for alternative energy. When people say alternative energy, questions if alternative energy can only exist if it's subsidized. And why? Because they have political clout. They control, in America, they control entire states. It's big unions. It's big industry. Yeah. And in Europe, they're afraid of unemployment, so, the Germans, they subsidize things that should have been closed 20 years ago. Solar, wind, geothermal. Israel already has a global standing, a global cachet. I think in wind, we should concentrate on mini and midi-sized wind production. I'm not a big fan of these huge wind generators. I don't know what the aggregate energy saved of these are over time. They need a huge amount of concrete just for their foundation. I don't know whether you know or not, concrete is one of the most energy-intensive things to produce, and one of the most polluting. To give credit to the industry, by the way, they're really attacking this question, the industry itself. They have entire meetings on energy for the concrete, cement, and lime industries. And how about keeping them repair the torque on these things, and to repair them, and what is the aggregate energy saved over 20 years? Also, they're ugly. That's another story. Waste to energy. Biyuv. Zenef. Zevel. Zenef. Sewage, garbage, manure.